Impeachment. You have understood what impeachment is all about? To hinder, to stop you. There are powers that want to stop you. In the book of Zechariah chapter 3, we said that enemy withstood the priest on his right hand, where he want to perform, to resist him, to stop him, to impeach God's divine verdict over his life. So devil is always at work to exterminate, to uproot, to hinder divine plans of God over your life. So you must be alive to know that your life is a life of battle. Praise the Lord. Our life is not a life of play. It's not a life of joke. It's a life of battle. When that consciousness dawns on you that this life is not a life where you'll be playing up and down. It's a life, it's like a battleground where God and Satan fought. Praise the Lord. Our case study today is Joseph. Joseph is a good example of that person that had a supreme verdict over his life. He had it. It was clear. Oh my. Do you understand what I'm saying? It was clear that he had it. But when he had it, he did not just, he had it from birth. He was born with that gift. Are you hearing what I'm saying? Joseph was born with what? That gift. That's why I always tell you, last time I was preaching, I was telling us here that we need to have a dream book at home. Our children will have a dream book. If you born 10 children, let all of the 10, let them all have dream book. Each morning, you call them, what did you see today? What did you dream? I dream where I'm swimming. Write it down. I dream where I'm chewing chewing gum. Write it down. I dream where I'm playing in the school. Write it down. Teach them all those things. Teach them the importance of good dreams and bad dreams. If you don't know how to interpret it, take it to your pastor. He will help you to analyze it or pray over it. But it is important that you must know all those things. Among all your 10 children, you will see the one that his or her own dream is more sharper than the other. You will also see the agents of darkness among your children who does not even dream at all. Or anytime he dreamed where all the whole family had an accident. Touch your number. Praise the Lord. Do you understand what I'm saying? Anytime he dreamed where mama died, papa died, everybody died. Also, mark that one. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's a serious issue. It's a serious issue. We are not here for a joke. Also, mark that one. And also be careful with that one, because devil may easily use that one to scatter others or even scatter you and your husband. Because everybody is a vessel to be used, either by God or by Satan. Do you understand what I'm saying? So you cannot use yourself. That thing you do, you think that I'm the one using myself. With the action, you find out that the owner of that action is the person that is using you. Do you understand what I'm saying? That thing you are doing, you think that I'm in charge. I'm the one doing it. I'm doing it with my clear eyes. Check the actions. Check the attributes of that performance. The owners of those attributes is the one that is in charge and controlling that vessel. Praise the Lord. You know, Joseph had a dream, and we saw what happens. So his brothers conspired. The Bible said they conspired to exterminate the supreme verdict. They conspired. They reasoned together. They said, no, there's something this guy has we don't have. And for us not allow this thing to come to pass, let us do something. Praise the Lord. They are not contented with what God has given to them. They are not satisfied. The only monitoring, they find out this one is the star in the family. How do you feel when you find out that you are not a star? Hello? Hello? How do you feel? How do you feel when you found out that you are not a star? Do you pray so that God will develop your star? Or you enter into the gang of conspirators? How do you feel when you find out that I am not a star? I am too dull to become a star. How do you feel? Do you think that spirit that was in them that made them to become so jealous and conspired that spirit have died? It hasn't died. Spirit does not die. Human can die, but they keep on living from one place to the other, generation to generation. They keep on progressing like that. And I pray the Almighty God will help us in Jesus' name. Praise the Lord. Listen. There will be no impeachment of verdict without what we call an article of impeachment. That's what we call an article of impeachment. Article of impeachment is gathering charges against the person, laying up charges. What did this? They will sit down to calculate the person's crime, the person's sin, how far the person has provoked them, how far the person have rocked them. Charges. They gather charges. They gather charges against Joseph. Remember, when they were gathering these charges, Joseph was unaware. He was still seeing them as brethren. He didn't know that his brethren has another meeting, another club, where all of them have agreed one particular thing, to eliminate God's supreme verdict. And I pray the Almighty God will help us in Jesus' name. Every satanic evil distraction in this place, I rebuke it in the name of Jesus Christ. I rebuke every demon that want to distract us from not understanding what is the mind of God concerning us. In the name of Jesus Christ. Praise the Lord. Yes. They lay all these charges against Joseph. Now, what are the sins of Joseph? Please help me to bring out his bowl. Praise the Lord. Yeah. Praise the Lord. What are the sins of Joseph? Let us look at those sins. Okay. Don't give me. Don't worry. Don't worry. Okay, don't worry. I'll leave it just that like that. Praise the Lord. We learned a lot of Wednesday here, the Feast of Tabernacle. It was really amazing. We saw a lot of things. And I pray the Almighty God will help us in the name of Jesus. Now let's look at this. I draw this thing in one of the book in my house, so I'll be looking at it. It looks like a check and balance. I use it to monitor my thought. Do you understand what I'm saying? I use it to monitor my thought. But when my thought want to derail, I look at the where I draw it. I draw it some places. I was looking at it. It's like a check. Check. When your thought want to derail, I look at it. You must seek a way to deliver yourself. Do you understand what I'm saying? You must try to seek for a way to deliver yourself. I told God, I said, God, I'm tired of confession. He said, then grow and mature. He said, when you grow and mature, you stop sinning. And when you stop sinning, you stop confessing. I say, what is it every time I say, God forgive me, God forgive me? Is it this language I'll be using now to go to? We need to grow and leave all this forgive. Does God pray, I forgive? God wants to replicate himself in us. So why are we, every time we want to pray, God forgive me, God forgive me? I told God, I'm tired of this forgiveness of sin. Then I heard a voice. He said, then you must be matured. He said, when you get matured, he said, you stop sinning. And when you stop sinning, you stop praying that prayer point. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. I'm talking to myself. So if it concerns you, do you understand what I'm saying? Because every time we pray, so God forgive me, God forgive me. Say, God, I'm tired. I don't like this use of word, forgive me. He said, he that is born of God commit no sin. What is all this drama? So it means, it is like genuinely we have not been, I want you to understand something. You must reason. We must get to the level where our prayer point must change. Do you understand what I'm saying? We must get to the level that shows that you are growing. We can't just be praying children's prayer always. At one level. If you are doing a graduate course, if you failed the first one, failed the second one, that is the last opportunity for you. They'll throw you off. You may do carryover in your undergraduate course. You keep on doing carryover until probably you tell them, please let your people go. But when you want to do graduate course, you have two opportunities. The first one, if you fail, the second one, you fail, they threw you off. Because they believe that at that moment, you're supposed to be a matured person. Because most people, they started lecturing from their first degree. Are you getting my point? You must talk like a master. So if we are not growing, it means a time will come, God will vomit us out of his mouth. The Bible says so. You are not cool. You are not hot. You are just in between, lukewarm. What do you expect is to throw you? I pray that the Almighty God will never throw us out from his mouth. In the name of Jesus Christ. We must be stable. We must be matured. We must grow. We must be developed. In the name of Jesus Christ. Touch that brother, he's possessed. Touch him. Touch him. Are you afraid to touch him? I said touch him. There's a demon that is hovering around him. Help your brothers, help your sisters. Pray. That is the truth. If you like it, if you don't like it, praise the Lord. You must help your brother to be delivered. We are here to deliver one another. So they saw Joseph and they were angry because there was a star following this young man, and that star was not seen by them. They were angry. They said, no, we can't bear it. We will not take it. We conspire. Now let us, what did Joseph did? The first thing, coat. Is that right? Okay, let me write it in full. Coat of. Coat of many. Praise the Lord. Please don't be tired. We are just starting. We are just doing rehearsal. Amen and amen. Coat of many what? They saw it in his body. No one was seen in their own body. Now, another thing I want us to get in these lessons, or in this preaching this morning, at what time did Jacob sew this cloth? Did he sew it when Joseph was born? And Joseph was growing with the cloth? We'll get to that answer when we finish defining this cloth. Praise the Lord. Do you understand what I'm saying? Now, this coat simply means God's light and his glory made manifest upon Joseph. The meaning of this coat simply mean God's light and his glory being made manifest upon the life of Joseph. Praise the Lord. Are you lively? It simply means God's light, God's glory made manifest upon the life of who? Joseph. Now, the colors. What is the meaning of the colors in that cloth? That cloth, why is it that that cloth is not one color? Do you understand what I'm saying? Because if you have been in the Middle East, they don't wear mixed colors. Hello? The Middle East people, the Arabs, doesn't wear mixed colors as a gown. Either they always go with a white flowing gown or blue. Blue. Do you understand what I'm saying? But it must be one color. Their women goes with a black. Do you understand what I'm saying? Their women goes with what? Black gown. Flow down. And most of them also cover their hairs with also black and open a small place where they see from their eyes. So they separate the men's cloth to be white down, women black up and down, and also women can also wear flowing white. Do you understand what I'm saying? But the way they sew women's own is also different the way they sew man's own. Is that right? It doesn't look alike, though all of them are flowing gowns. But the gowns for women looks different, and the gown for men also looks different. So in the case study of Joseph, the gown the father sewed for him was a gown with mixed colors, while the gown all his siblings had was a gown with one color. Hello? So when they look at this guy, so they knew, when all of them comes out, they knew that this guy is totally different from them. Praise the Lord. So I want you to understand the reason why they became jealous. They became angry. They became envious against this person. The colors, the mixed colors in this cloth simply means God's covenant between God and Abraham revealed in Joseph. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. God's covenant between God and Abraham revealed in Joseph. You may not understand what this means, but Jacob the father who sewed the cloth understood. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Do you understand what I'm saying? Do you understand what I'm saying? We always sing coat of many what? Coat of many colors. We have never sat down to ask ourselves question. This color in this coat, what does it symbolize? Or do you think that the Bible is just writing nonsense? Do you understand what I'm saying? He said, this is a coat. But this particular coat is totally different from other coats. Do you understand what I'm saying? He said, this particular coat has different colors. So by the inspiration of God, Jacob understood that this guy, the behavior of this guy is trying to point me back to the covenant between his father, Abraham, Isaac, and God, the Jehovah. So in order to mark this boy, he marked this boy with this cloth. We're coming there. So the colors simply means, get it right again. The color simply means God's covenant between God and Abraham, which is revealed in Joseph. The only person that will understood that is Jacob. And that's why it is only him that have the right to do that. Praise the Lord. So that cloth was sewn by inspiration. It was not sewn because it's just an ordinary liking. No. Praise the Lord. There's another thing. that happens in the life of Joseph. The coming of Joseph in that family removed shame and reproach upon the life of Rachel. Do you understand what I'm saying? You know, Rachel has been barren. She's supposed to be the first wife. And now she's answering the second wife. As a result of the way God programmed things. Praise the Lord. You remember? Hello? This woman called Rachel, she's supposed to be what? First wife. And as a result of coincidence, or the way plans of God is, she was now the second wife. And you know, in every family, when you have 2 or 3 wives, the first wife always claim authority. Especially when she born boys everywhere. You see the kind of boys born? Boys feel everywhere. So when you look at his boys, going up and down, growing and all the rest of them, you look at Rachel, they laugh. They became what we call a mockery chant. They use the situation of Rachel. They use it to create song around themselves. And Rachel saw that. She keep on weeping. She keep on groaning. Like what happened between Peninnah and Hannah. So they keep on crying unto God. And God kept silent. Because when God will release his own, it will become original. Original will be original. Original does not come first always. Hello? Original will always pretend as if it's not important. When he show forth, you will know original by their characteristics, not by their announcement. You know original by their characteristics, not by their announcement. When you drop original on the ground, it doesn't make noise. But when you test the characteristics, you know that this is original. So original does not be made known by their announcement, but they are being made known by their characteristics, by their nature. Do you understand what I'm saying? Are you getting something there? Now listen. Where we read, the Bible said, okay, we saw that this Joseph also removed shame. Please help me to bring the other smaller something here so I will not be climbing up. Praise the Lord. So this coming of Joseph in that family removed shame. Listen, when the enemy knows, listen, if you are being born 3, 4, 5, any woman in the family or in any house that born 3 or 4 kids, when they care, if it's a godly woman, when they carefully look at all the children, he or she will know the one that bears the character of God. If the woman bears the character of God, the mother will claim the child and say, this one look like the mother. If the daughter carries the character of the father, you see, the mother will indirectly say, you carry your father's character. It's to tell you this character is not a good one. Probably the father has the character of a serpent seed. And no woman would like to claim that, though they always go with that. You know what I'm saying? Did I say anything? It's like I didn't understand what I'm trying to say. They're always pregnant. Anytime they are pregnant, their seed may be serpent child. Man doesn't become pregnant. Who born serpent? Huh? Who born serpent? Huh? But they will never claim that the source of that evil seed comes from them. So when the bad character is being exhibited, they will push it to the father. They say it's the gene. Then they will teach you biology. They will teach you what? They will tell you they are just an incubator. But when the character is too wonderful, they will claim it. You look like your mother. Wow, you are amazing. Because they like the character. Do you understand what I'm saying? Women, they do that in the family. And they are too wise. Because they monitor their kids. As they are growing up, they monitor the one that looks like the husband when she married that man newly. character does not lie. It's like a smoke. When you don't know, it will boom. You may be hiding it in the church. You hide it in the church. Hide it here. You hide it here. But before you know it, it will do boom. And when it will do boom, pastor is there. Sister is there. Another brother is there. They say, brother, well done. Are you seeing something? Jacob saw something. Jacob was the one that born all these ones. He saw something. There is something here. I don't know what you are seeing about your children. What are you seeing about your own children? It is very important. John Wesley's mother, she saw something upon her kids. And she has 17 kids. You just born 4, 5, you are bragging. You are tired. When that one is not even first phase. It's not first phase. It's not up to first phase. John Wesley's mother born 17. Not 7. And she was always on her knees because she knew that she born trouble. So if God did not come down, then there will be problem in that home. Then the only way to arrest all those children is to invite a superior power to arrest them before they will arrest the family. If you don't arrest your children untimely, they will arrest you and beat you up and kill you and say nothing happens. They say, that bastard woman. Now their mother, they call bastard woman. You need to develop, to do parenting is not easy. You must develop muscle. As you are spending your money upon those kids, you must also spend your intellect. You must also spend your praying time. Spend your praying time. You born 20, you born 5, but none of them can stand in the place of God. None of them, you can't be proud of any. All of them keep on displaying the characteristics of the serpent seed. You won't be happy, the father won't be happy, the environment will not be happy, the community will not be happy, because you're born devils. Who is responsible? The parents cannot easily exonerate themselves. They can't. Because while those kids are growing up, you are watching those characters. You can't tell me that. You are not seeing those characters. You are seeing them. You know the children that is not giving you much strength, much problem. You leave that one alone. That one has a covenant with God. Those ones that are giving you much strength, face that one. First, it's because it grows muscle. Because when it grows muscle, you can't control. Except God intervenes. When it grows muscle, Jacob saw something. What are you seeing? Or what do you want to see in those children you want to born? What are your declarations upon those kids? What are you saying upon their lives? What you say upon their life will stand because you are their parents. They are your blood. Jacob saw something upon Joseph. Oh my. He said, this one. We'll get there. Oh my. He knew that this one has what we call exceptional gift. Praise the Lord. Others may have gift, but this one, his own gift is exceptional. Do you understand what I'm saying? When he dream and wake up and say it will come to pass. He has been dreaming. Remember, at the time of sewing the cloth, it's 17 years. At the time of this report, Joseph is already 17. Hello? Are you with me? Mark that age. We are coming there. Because the cloth was not sewn when he was 1 year or 2 years, because he wasn't growing with the cloth. Hello? He wasn't growing with the cloth. But exactly at this time, the Bible recorded, the brethren conspired against him. He was how many years? 17 years. So it seems between 16 to 17, the father saw the cloth. Do you understand what I'm saying? Between 16, 17, the father saw the cloth. And before that time, he has been monitoring this child from age 2, 3. Because when a child became 2 to 3 years, he will start learning how to talk. Is that right? Learning how to talk. For the baby talks everything at that time. 3 to 4 years, whatever you say, he repeat after you. Whatever you say, he repeat after you. They are learning fast because their brain is open to assimilate easily. Is that right? Do you understand what I'm saying? Now, at that time, the baby will sleep and wake up. He tell father, Daddy, this is what I saw last night. They will watch. That thing will come to pass. At that tender age. As the baby was growing, it get to 10 years. The same thing continues. The same thing continues. Don't forget whom Jacob is. Don't forget how God has met him. Don't forget how he has been builded up over time spiritually. He has been watching this guy. He saw something different. He said, no, this guy has a connection with the covenant the Jehovah had with my grandfather, which is Abraham. I have to identify him. I have to single him out from the rest of this one. Praise the Lord. Then he gave him that cloth. He gave him, we call it token of recognition. Token of what? You got it? Did you see what I wrote? Huh? Did you see what I wrote? Token of what? He gave him that token of what? So even if he's coming from far, others, their color of cloth is white. Others, their own is blue. That colored one is that special seed. It's called what? Token of recognition. What does it symbolize in our today's time? Seal. Holy Ghost. Is that right? Huh? Do you understand what I'm saying? When was this given? Was it at birth? Was it at birth? This was given when the time of his ministry to Egypt was about to start. I don't know if you understand something there. Does it look like anything? Does it look like anything? Does it look like anything? Bible teachers here. Does it look like anything? The cloth was sewn when his missionary journey to Egypt was about to start. And the father saw something and gave him a token of recognition. Because with this token, you will use it to achieve your mission. You won't begin that journey without this token. That's why had it been this token of recognition was given at birth, I don't know what might have happened. Praise the Lord. Oh, do you know? I don't know if you're understanding anything here. The token of recognition, which is called seal of remembrance, which is our today's Holy Ghost, was given to him when it was the revelation God gave to Jacob that made him to sew that cloth. Hello? He gave it to him as a token of recognition, which the brothers saw it. They were angry. When you receive the baptism of the Holy Spirit, my brother, hell will be loosed. Do you understand what I'm saying? Receiving of the Holy Spirit is a good thing, but it's calling you into warfare. Hello? You're under attack. Praise the Lord. Receiving of the baptism of the Holy Spirit is a good thing as a Christian. It launches you into the spirit of rest. But it's also a calling into warfare. Receiving of the Holy Spirit, you don't receive it and you go and sleep. You receive it to get ready to fight. That's why when he got this token of recognition, battle starts. Battle started in his life. Is that not true? Battle started. Before this time, they were ignoring his dream and visions. But when this was given, then the real vision came that will move him out to go and fulfill his calling. Praise the Lord. Then he saw the final dream. Praise the Lord. He did what? Joseph did what? He saw the final dream that the whole family cannot bear. Even the father who saw the cloth. You know, it's always a man. I always tell us that man is selfish. It is only your parents that will pray that you'll be greater than them if that parent is godly. If that parent is not godly, they won't be happy. Do you understand? They still want to be controlling you. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's only godly parents that will keep on praying and say, Lord, let this my children be greater than me. All the things I suffered, all the things I went through, I don't want them to go through it. It's only good parents will do that. You pray over your children. You have went through battles. You have went through disappointment. You went through mess up. People mess you up. There's nobody to trust anymore. When you remember that it is the same word, you went through all these things, you born these children, it pains you. Because as they are growing up, they must go through that. So it must call you, you must be called into prayer and say, Lord, these my children, they must not suffer what I suffered. If you have understanding, you must do that. You must, it's a must. When you get children, you are called into work, not into celebrating. You are called into what? Work. Token of recognition. That is the crime Joseph committed. He didn't pray for 21 days. He didn't ask the father to sew any cloth for him. Father discerned something, and he was led to do this. Remember, yes, he was a prophet, and he saw something, and the word of the Lord comes to the prophet, and he singled this one out and sealed him, and they became angry. Why should only our brother be sealed? Why should only him be the one that have the Holy Ghost? He's the one that have the ministry. If God give you the Holy Ghost, will you be using it to be cooking food? The frying biscuit, akara, and chicken? You'll be using it to be putting different kinds of fake things in your life? Some of us put bangles. God give you the Holy Ghost. The essence of giving you the Holy Ghost for you to go and use it and put bangle. You put watch here, the other side a bangle. What is the work of that bangle? This watch is for time. This one is for what? Tell us. For monitoring the Holy Ghost? Some people will put a rubber band. You look at it, you remove your eyes. You don't see the spirit behind rubber band. You say it's nothing. Is it nothing? It's nothing. You don't know there's a spirit that is controlling that person. That says, hence you don't have money to buy gold. Put rubber band. Rubber band, you can pick it on the ground. The spirit that is controlling those people who put chain on their neck and on their waist, on their leg, on their hand. It is the same spirit that controls that person who put rubber band. The color doesn't make sense to devil. What devil wants is that you are fulfilling his plans. Do you understand what I'm saying? Rubber band does not make any meaning to you. But the master that is behind your life, it makes meaning to him. That is that devil. So some of us are ignorant. Your kids will come back from school, you see them with a rubber band. Who gave them rubber band? It's entanglement. Demonic evil entanglement. If they grow up, they will not put rubber band. They will go to market and buy jewelry. Those who have money does not put rubber band. They put jewelry. So that when they turn their hand like this, you see it. When they want to greet you, you know the value of that jewelry. You know that they are not babies. That they are working. That they are earning money. That the money speaks. They are demonic. Not a joke. It's serious matter. You come to church without it. You go to party with it. You are demonic. Devil is working in you. You still have a reservation in a bus. You are no more wearing it at all. But in your bus, you still have it. What is he doing there? Maybe you are waiting for the day you will backslide. You are waiting for the day it will backslide. You wear it. You are no more wearing it to go anywhere, but you reserve it in your bus. In case if Christ didn't come back again, you wear it. You wear it. You see us? Did you see ourselves now? You see all we thought we are going to rapture. We are preparing for the rapture. So if rapture didn't come back, we go back and wear it. If rapture happens, okay. So you think that God is not seeing it? You think God is not seeing it? You say, you think so? You with your mouth, you have confessed. I don't like this, but you reserve it. You reserve it. The spirit of liking shine things is demonic. If you like, you don't like it. Oh, I thank God I'm saying it, and I cannot withdraw it back. Anything that is shine. Anytime you deliver your wife or any sister from shine, then that person has been delivered. Take your wife to the market and tell her to buy whatever she like. You have the money to pay. She will select shine. That's a sister that is filled with the Holy Ghost. Watch her. Tell her, I have the money. I want to take you out. I want to buy things for you. Just, we are here. Go around. Whatever you see, buy. Just bring it out, I will pay. But this is the benchmark of the money I have. This is the range of the money. Because if you don't tell your wife the range of the money you have, then she will buy everything that is in that store. So tell her, I budgeted 30,000, 50,000, 100,000 for this trip. Tell her, are you getting my point? If you can give her that money to hold. Tell her this is it, but go and select whatever you want to select based on this amount. You must be specific to your wife. If not, they will put you into trouble. Specific. Because they will think that they are the one ruling Nigeria. So tell them what you have. Tell them what you don't have. Then they can keep you alive. That's the truth. That's the truth. So tell them to select. Watch what they are going to select. What they will select will marvel you. You will question the existence of the Holy Ghost. And when they will bring it, they will be laughing and be dancing. Honey, do you like it? Oh, I like it. You'll be watching. But if you are a sissified husband, a husband without a backbone, you will only tell her you have selected it. Are you not the one wearing it? You go and pay now. You are a husband that does not have backbone. Having backbone simply means you don't know the word of God. You don't know the placing of the word of God in our lives. It's not being strong. It's not being harsh. It's not knowing how to talk. No, it's knowing what is right at the right time. Very difficult, but we must say it. Praise the Lord. Jacob saw something. So I don't know what you are seeing. You, the wife, what are you seeing in your husband? Husband, what are you seeing in your wife? When you see that your husband is a devil, what are you doing? Yes, some wife can see truly that devil inhabit in the heart of their husband. Is that right? That's the truth. It's already a mistake. Mad, internal mistake. You can't divorce. No running. What do you do? When a wife finds out that the man he married or she married is a demon-possessed man, what can you do? Will you fight him? Will you go and beat him because you have more muscle? What are you seeing? Jacob saw something on this man called Joseph. He gave him a token of recognition. Husband, what are you seeing in your wives? Those things you are seeing, if it is in a negative side, how are you striving to assist her? How are you trying to help her? Or are you there to expose her weakness? People like exposing people's weakness. There is no contribution. Nobody will give you gifts that you have done well by exposing your wife's weakness or your husband's weakness. They will only jeer at you, use your case as a mockery, or create a case around it. Nobody will celebrate it. So if you think people will start clapping for you, they will only take it as a case study. He saw something. He saw something on this young man. He gave him a token of recognition. And the people, it pains them so much. It pains them. They weren't happy that this young man has given the father has given this young man a token, and they don't have it. And Joseph is a symbol of peace between God and the man. You didn't understand it. It won't have meaning at that level. It won't have meaning at that level. But don't forget, the prophet typed Joseph to Jesus Christ. So Joseph is a symbol of peace between God and man. Because he gave Abraham a covenant. He said, your children will go into slavery. They will be there for 400 what? And after 400 years, I will do what? I will bring them. And Jacob saw somebody that looks like who will fulfill that. And he gave him a token of recognition. Praise the Lord. And his brothers said, no, this cannot happen. Because of these wonderful qualities, they use it as a charge against Joseph. They lay charge against him. They said, no, he has all these wonderful things. We have none. Then we will fight it to the end. That's what we are still doing now. When you see that your brother is gifted, do you appreciate those gifts? Or you fight against it? Or you go, and if you have an opportunity to preach, you carve a message around that to talk the person down, to eliminate that gift, to make the person to say, I don't have gift again. No, I'm just like you people. So that peace will reign. People like to be just ordinary. Nobody wants to be extraordinary. People want to be ordinary people. Just like us, we are just there. I have nothing, so leave me the way I am. People like to be ordinary. They don't want to go for ordinary personality. So you talk it down. You don't want to encourage that gift. Instead of them to encourage the wonderful gift that is in their brother, they stood up and they fought against it. But I want to tell you, God was responsible. God was what? God was what? Because he wants to build the man he will give authority to. So the process of building a man, authority will be handed over. It's not a day's journey. We'll get there. There must be availability of taskmasters that will help to build him up. And that taskmasters will start from his home before it will touch the environment. or the neighbors, the tax masters that will be helped to shape that man whom God is going to use will start from your house. It can start from the church. It can even start from your pastor. Hello? It can even start from the person you least expected it from. So there is no particular person God will tell you to watch. When he said watch, he meant watch. He didn't say watch your brother. He didn't say watch your pastor. He didn't say watch your sister or your parents. He said watch. Impeachment of a supreme verdict. So the battle is in this supreme what? Verdict. Every one of us has a supreme verdict. Have you recognized or discovered your own personal supreme verdict? Or you want your parents to recognize it for you? It's an individual thing. Do you understand what I'm saying? Hello? Hello? Yeah. It's an individual thing. You must recognize you are God's supreme verdict. When I was a little child, I was growing up, I knew that I'm going to serve God. I knew it when I was small. I could remember when I was small, when I was growing up, my uncle was Archbishop. So when they came home, they would be coming like God on earth. He's flowing down. We'll be cleaning the ground. So, I like the way he talks small. I said, this one is closer to God. As I want to serve God, I will be like this person. I've just made up my mind. As I was growing up, I don't think if I've entered primary school at that time. I want you to imagine that's a little mind at that time. I said, no, there is nothing I would do if not to serve God. I just made up my mind. And that little, I could remember that. I can't forget that. But do you know what God did? When I was in class 4, I got this message. That's what changed the course. If not, now I would have been one bishop in Methodist, because he was the Archbishop of Methodist at that time. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm telling you the truth by now, because I caught it on time. And God saw it. He said, no, that is not the way I want for you. So I don't know you. You are too old to say you don't know God's supreme verdict around you. You are too old to say that. You are too old. And God always communicates through dreams and visions to tell you the side I want you to go. But you, because you have your own will, like Bro Gideon was teaching this morning about Christ's will and God's will. It is intermingled with our spirits. We have your will, which you want to do, and that will you want to do does not take any advice. Your ear can be taking advice, but that will doesn't take advice. You may be sitting and taking all the whole advice, but you already know that your will is not listening. It is only your literal ears that is listening. Your real and inside will is not, because you still want to do your will. Is that right? It's a problem. And it hinders God. It hinders God. They fought him. They laid charge against him. Job 33. What I got to read for me? Job 33, 14 to 15. Please, fast,
Job
we don't have time.
33, 14 to 15.
Yeah.
For God speaketh once, twice, yet man perceiveth it not. In a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falleth upon men, in slumbering upon the bed.
Praise the Lord.
Amen.
14.
16.
For God speaketh what? Twice. Yet man persevered. So you see, it didn't start today. Hello? It did not start. It didn't start today. God spoke once. He also speak again. Yet man doesn't hear. They don't want, they are not seeking. They thought that dream is a joke. Maybe they are following a mentor that told them that a dream does not make any sense, that it comes as a reason of your daily activities. You understand? They will give you another scripture that told you that dream comes as a reason of your multitude of activities. Then busy mind, they cancel everything. They say, no. God doesn't, that one is not God. But the Bible says, God speak to people. If you are waiting for God to shout from heaven, I'm God. If you speak like that, you may not hear him. Because when he spoke like that, they say he thundered. They couldn't hear him. Is that right? It was only the person that voice was meant for heard him. He said, for God speaketh once, yet twice, yet man perceiveth it not. Some of the things that is happening around us, God has been telling us in dreams and revelations. But because we decided not to perceive it, we gave deaf ears to it. We don't know the importance of writing dreams down. We don't know the importance of hearing from God, because nothing happens to you unawares. You are a spirit being. You are not just ordinary body walking up and down. Yes. He said, God, see it, speak it. Once. In dreams, go in 15. In a dream, in a vision of the night. Dream is a vision of the night. When deep sleep falleth upon men in a slumberings upon the bed, they will ask you, how did you eat last night? Did you eat too much? Yes, I ate too much. It's a result of that food you ate. They wave the dream by the side. It's a result of carnality. It's a result of ignorance of the way God operates. Either by too much activity, or by too much eating, or by however, write it down. So imagine when they brought Joseph before Pharaoh. Joseph told Pharaoh, it's too much eating. That is the end of his mission. Hello? Do you understand what I'm saying? Imagine when they brought Joseph before Pharaoh. They asked him, tell us the dream. You ate too much last night. They killed cow for you last night. Is it not big cow you saw? Yeah, the cow they killed before is too big. The one that they are going to kill tomorrow will be light. It will be a small cow. So tell them to upgrade the cow. And God said, I should be around when they are going to kill the cow, so that I will select the cow. Imagine. Praise the Lord. Do you understand what I'm saying? Seeing a godly dream, the dream is one thing. Amen. Do you understand what I'm saying? So I have the gift of interpretation to tell you that that dream does not have meaning. Every dream must be written down. Take it to your pastor. The pastor knows how to handle it. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. Now I pray, Almighty God will help us in Jesus' name. Yeah. In a vision of the night. And let me also tell you, having a good dream from God, one is a gift. Secondly, you must develop that gift. When you find out that you have that gift, develop it. Hello? Sharpen it. Do you understand what I'm saying? Sharpen your gift. If you found out that among your kids, this one, you always have a wonderful dream, teach that one how to fast and pray. Let that one know that he has a gift he must preserve. Hello? Do you understand what I'm saying? There are some people, after seeing the dreams, they also have an interpretation. So when your kids share their dreams to you, ask them questions. Are you hearing what I'm saying? Because most dreams comes with interpretation. Most dreams comes with what? Interpretation. Some of our kids, we wake up in the middle of the night. They say, mommy, daddy. You say, what is that? You touch the baby. Go back to sleep. You are a carnal mother. You are a carnal father. Something woke your child up. You say, go back to sleep. Are you afraid? Okay, come and join me in my own bed. You see the level you operate? When you woke up, you sit down and ask, what did you see? Do you understand what I'm saying? He saw something. If that child has never grew up to the level of speaking, you pray over that child. You lay your hands upon that child and pray over that child. Are you getting something? But you have gotten to the level of speaking, you don't hasten him back to sleep. You calm down. You ask that child. Praise the Lord. You ask that child, what did you hear? What did you see? Calm down and let that child explain to you. Don't be in a hurry because you too, you have sleep in your eyes. You want to go and sleep. That's serious. Some people will say, there is sleep in my eyes. If I keep on doing this drama here now, the sleep will disappear. And I won't have chance to sleep again. We have a lot of flimsy excuses. And devil gave us those excuses. Praise the Lord. It's a serious matter that concerns us. Because each every one of us, God dealt with us in different ways. So you cannot say God is not dealing with you. You are the one that have shut God away from your life. You have shut God away because of your too much activities. You don't have time for God. And you shut him away. And you say, God doesn't talk to me. Every time you are disturbing pastor to be praying for you. You don't know that you are your own pastor. So that the work of the pastor can be light. May God help us. In Jesus' name. Yeah. There's no time we would have go more. Genesis 31:42. In that Genesis 31:42, Jacob understood the importance of dream. When he was in the house of Laban, oh my, God met him in a dream. He was worried. He said, how will I make this thing? I found that it's like my years in this land is getting wasted. How will I make this? Then God came in a dream. God did not come physically. Want to read? Okay.
Except the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac, had been with me. Surely thou hadst sent me away now empty. God had seen my affliction and the labor of my hands, and rebuked thee yesternight. And Laban answered and said unto Jacob, these daughters are my daughters, and these children are my children, and these cattle are my cattle, and all that thou seest is mine. And what can I do this day unto these my daughters, or unto their children which they have borne? Now therefore, come thou, let us make a covenant, I and thou, and let it be a witness between me and thee.
Just stop there. What was Laban's intention from the beginning? Is to kill him. Is that right? But God, Ancient of Days, oh my, God came down. He went in. He came into the matter in a dream. Oh, we must learn this God. When Abraham lied that Sarah is not my wife, God came down in a dream. He lied again. God came down in a dream. Oh my. You said dream is not important? You want God to visit you? You said dream is not important? You don't want to develop your dreams? God came down in a dream and stopped him from doing havoc, from committing atrocity. God can stop you from doing evil. God can use dreams and vision to stop you. If you can open that door of gifts before the Lord, he will open that door of vision. every powers of darkness, we render you useless in the name of Jesus Christ. You are frustrated. We hit you. We hit you. We hit him. Dreams are channels God normally used to talk to us. We are addressing it. Devil want to collect the voice. I throw it with my voice. It's a channel. God want to speak. God want to open. And devil is not happy. When you are spiritually awake, you will see dreams. You will see visions. Yes, sir. So what are we talking about? Devil want to impeach your supreme-giving verdict. Oh my, we can't take it. We will not accept it. Because the Lord has placed us in a higher ground. Has placed us in a higher ground. See, somebody who has prepared for battle, he said, let us enter into covenant. Because I've seen that the God of this guy is greater than his own God. You must show the world that you are carrying a greater God. It's not by talking. Jacob didn't say anything, but his works identified whom he is. Let your work identify whom you are. Not by saying it, not by going about and announcing it. Let your works tell us. Stop preaching. Let your character preach. When you preach, people will hear. When your character preach, will the people hear? Hello? When you preach, people will be hearing. But when your character is preaching, will you still have any member? When your character is the one preaching, will you still have a member in your church? When you preach as if you are living with God. But when your character is displayed, will you have a listener? Will anybody be willing to follow your character? Sad. Let's enter into covenant. I want to have a deal with somebody like you. It's no more an issue of in-law. It has passed the level of in-law. This one is covenant. I want your God to be my God. Jacob was innocent, but one of the wife nearly put him into trouble. If you are not a strong man, your wife will put you into trouble. That's true. Now you don't like saying it, hearing it, saying it. If you are not a strong person, your wife, that wife that is not spiritual, will put you into trouble. Will put you into mess you may not like. To tell this testimony here, you won't have any testimony to say, because it is your wife. And when you say it, it's like you are revealing yourself to the world. You'll be dying spiritually because your wife is responsible. Imagine this man, he was vowing. He said, we didn't go with anything. But the wife hid it. Idol. How many idols have we hidden? How many idols have we hidden? How many idols have we hidden in our hearts? In my language, they say that women has many character. When you marry them newly, they behave like an angel. When they born a woman, they still behave like a semi-angel. When they born a man, they behave like a lion. They say they have come to stay. If you back on them, they back on you. If you challenge them, they challenge you. At that time, they were telling you, this house is my house. If you mess up, I will drive you away. If you have a car, that car becomes her car. That's why we must not play with them. We must pray that God will help us and give us godly ones. Those ones that will help us to run this race. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. Dreams. Very key. Some people say, I don't have the gift and I walk away. Everything you target to gift. Abimelech, did he have a gift of dream? Laban, did he have gift of dream? You always try to exonerate yourself. I don't have the gift. Now, you who have the gift, keep on dreaming. Keep on seeing your vision. You walk away. Do you understand what I'm saying? These are channels. Open your channels. Open your channels. Open it. That's what I'm saying. Open your channels. There's something we saw there. The two things happen in verse 11. Man of God, read 11. Genesis 37:11. Oh, man.
Genesis 37:11.
Yes.
And his brethren envied him, but his father observed the same.
Oh my. Oh my. Envy him. Envy. Envied. This word in Hebrew just like this. In Hebrew, it is called kana. That is kio. Kio, which means to turn red. Jealousy. Praise the Lord. So his brethren did what? Their faces turned what? And they were filled with what? When they found this token of recognition, their faces turned red. They were filled with jealousy. Now, what happens with the father? Huh? Observe in the Hebrew means shama, which means preserve. The father observed the saying. He preserved the saying. And again, it also means watch or watchman. This is watchman. Do you understand what I'm writing? Do you understand what I'm writing? Observed, shama, preserved, or preserve, watchman. So which means two things happen in the character. In the qualities of this man. The qualities of this man led these people to be envied. While the father, he led him to preserve those meanings, those dreams, those visions in his heart. Then he gave it time. So every dreams and visions must be given time to. Do you understand what I'm saying? Every dreams and vision, as you are working on your dreams and visions, praying over it and all the rest of them, you must also give it time. Don't quickly conclude. The brethren quickly conclude. They envied him. Their faces turned red. They were angry. Why should it be him, not us? Do you get something there? Two things happened. The brethren envied him while the father observed. The father was watching. The father preserved all those things in his heart. They did what? When this was going on, the father sent him to go and check for them in the wilderness. When they caught him, he never knew that they have done conspiracy against him. The Bible said they stripped him naked. What is the symbol of stripping him naked? Removing all those things that irritates them. Let him be like us. They want to silence the gift. So they thought by removing all those cloths, I've removed. Those cloths is just the symbol of what is inside. So removing the cloth did not remove the real thing. Do you understand what I'm saying? Removing the cloth is just a symbol. It's like a compass that leads you to something. So they remove it, the shadow of the real thing that is inside. So they remove it, thinking that they have exterminated his God's given verdict. Impeachment of supreme verdict. So they strip him naked. God was responsible. They cast him inside the pit. God was responsible. They sold him to Egypt. God was responsible. They sold him to Potiphar's house. God was also responsible. Potiphar's wife came with temptation. God was also responsible. They captured him and cast him to the king's prison. God was responsible. In the king's prison, 2 people inside the king's prison saw dream. God was responsible. Oh my, God was responsible all the way because he's taking him somewhere. When he interpreted the dreams of the prison inmates, God was also responsible. When Pharaoh had his own dream, God was responsible for that dream. God gave Pharaoh that dream. And God used Pharaoh to send for Joseph. God was also responsible. When Joseph came and interpreted Pharaoh's dream, God was responsible all the way. But listen, all those things we call or we mention that God is all true responsible, they are not good news. Hello? They are not what? No. People want to hear good news, they tag it to God. Any bad news that comes around you, they won't believe that it's related to God. Hello? Do you understand what I'm saying? Anything that has to do with the bad news, they don't want to link God to it. They say, no, it is because of your sin. Your sin is much. You are not holy. Maybe your parents have committed atrocity. You have inherited the curse of your forefathers' curses. You need land deliverance. You need head deliverance. You need the head deliverance. You need to buy this and buy the other because they want to deliver your land for you. They don't want to link God to anything that happens around you. But in the midst of all these things, Joseph was growing. Praise the Lord. He was growing. It didn't happen overnight. His ministry started when he was 17. The journey of the ministry started. But he started the real ministry when he was 30 years. Hello? Are you with me? The journey of the ministry started when he was what? Journey, not the real ministry. Which means he was under tutorship for 13 years. Go to school and spend 13 years. No. This course, can you crash it for me? Crash this course for me. Crash it. Can you compress this course for me? We're in the jet age. We also use that ideology before God. God, crash this thing for me. God, compress this journey for me. Even now, you cry, you fast, you roll on the ground. Nah, I will not let you go until you do it. Jacob did it. I must do it. I must hold you. Crash this course for me. It is a course we have with God. You want God to crash it? Jacob was in that journey for 13 years. On the 30th year, he was the minister. Do you understand? 13 years journey of suffering. Without seeing brother, without seeing sister, without seeing any relatives to call to. 13 years. You yourself, you are even suffering. You can still talk to your mom, you talk to your brother, and you are still, that one is he suffering. That one is rehearsal. Do you understand what I'm saying? This man was in a strange land. There's nothing like phone. No internet. For 13 years, he was languishing in pain. But he couldn't give up. He couldn't give up. His dream was still sharp. His interpretation was still sharp. He was still following. He was still listening to this God. Oh my. What really marvels me was when his brothers met him and they pleaded for leniency, for mercy, then he said, you are not responsible. Imagine. See? How can you balance it? How can you balance it? He said, you are not. Oh my, it humbles me. They were guilty. They fell on the ground. They said, no, we are not worthy to behold your face. And Jacob said, don't say that. With tears. He fell on the ground and they hugged them. Because all of them, they knelt down before the king. You must pay obeisance. You must prostrate before the king. They prostrated. They fulfill what they want to exterminate. That vision they were fighting for. That vision, they don't want it to come to pass. They did it without knowing when they did it. They fulfilled that vision with a beg. Don't kill us. We are willing to be your slave. You see? That vision they were fighting. If you can remain where you are with God, those people who are fighting God's given verdict over your life, they must certainly come back to bow. The years does not matter. I'm telling you, the days you have stayed and that problem does not matter with God. What matters is your positioning. Your years you have stayed without seeing revival doesn't matter. The years without seeing help, no help come from anywhere, helpers have disappeared. That does not matter to God. You are counting years. This is 20 years. I've been suffering. I've been left alone. Nobody is helping me. It is not God's language. What God is interested in is your positioning. What is your spiritual positioning with God? That's what matters with him. Those things you are going through, they are tools that will make you whom you are. These are tools that will sharpen you. These are tools that will make you to be a true son indeed. Oh my, bro, Gideon was talking about adoption in the morning. These are tools that will make you to be adopted. If you refuse to go through the pains, you will never experience the gain. If you refuse to go through the sharpening iron, if you refuse to go through the molding time, you will never experience the gain. People want to hear your testimony. Nobody want to hear your suffering. Nobody want to hear your story. Nobody want to hear what you are going through. Nobody want to listen. You fell here, you fell here, you pass here, you fell here. Nobody's interested. They want to see. They want to see result, because result terminates insult. You must wake up and say, Lord, every insult in my life, in my destiny, it must be exterminated. It must be terminated. I'm tired of being insulted in this present situation. I don't know what you are saying about that problem. Are you murmuring? Are you complaining? If you complain about that situation, Satan celebrates on it. If you complain on it, Satan is celebrating. But praise God in all things, and you will see what God. It's not easy. It is too wonderful to preach, but to do it is where the battle is. I want you to make it's an individual thing and say, Lord, what I am going through, they are not enough to stop me. It's a decision. If you're ever going through anything, because some people are not even going through anything. Yes, some people are not even going through anything. When you are being mocked, you must endure. When you are being mesmerized, you must endure. Oh, when people are using your case as gossip, oh, you must endure. What God is calling for is endurance. Oh my, the word endure in the Greek is called phero, which means to sustain, to bear. So, if you must endure, you must be able to sustain. You must create a spiritual shock observer, not to show up your weakness. Because everybody carries weakness. Hello? Everybody does what? Carry weakness. They go up and down. But the level of your weakness and the level of your strength is what matters. So allow people to see the level of your strength instead of the level of your weakness. So in all the troubles of life, you must be willing to sustain it. Create a spiritual shock observer to bear it. No matter how the winds blow, you say, no, I can't be shaken. I know what I believe. I know what I know. This God delivered. You can't be preached out when you know this. You must bear. There's no reason that will justify you to throw away the God's dignity upon your life. Praise the Lord. We have three people that are represented on the earth. The priests of God. Oh, praise God. We have three people that are represented on the earth. We have the priest. We have the lawyers. We have the prophets. Praise the Lord. Today, the priests are the pastors. Is that right? Imagine seeing a high priest fighting on the street. Hello? Are you with me? High priest that carries the sins of the people inside the Holy of Holies, fighting on the street. Huh? They will break down the temple. Priest or lawyers. Lawyers are not meant to fight. Not Nigerian lawyers. Hello? Do you understand what I'm saying? Because they are trained with that dignity, with respect. You must know whom you are. The people, it's like seeing Moses fighting. Moses is the maker of the law. Do you understand what I'm saying? They call him a lawgiver. Do you understand what I'm saying? Moses is the maker of the law. So it's like imagining seeing Moses fighting. Oh my. So lawyers are trained in a part of their training not to fight. Your fighting is your intellectual capacity. If you want to fight, make use of what is upstairs to fight. You don't fight on the street. It's like wrestlers. Have you ever seen wrestlers or the boxers fighting on the street? They'll be bound. Do you understand what I'm saying? They don't fight on the street because they must know whom they are. If they fight on the street and they are being captured, they'll be banned. Their license will be stripped off. So imagine a priest who entered into the Holy of Holies fighting. You have sold the mantle of God upon your life. You must know this. I don't know, you may not understand it. If you go through the rigorous process of becoming a priest, you will value it. Do you understand what I'm saying? Do you know what it means? That a lawyer, they collected his license of operation. All his years is gone. He must go and look for another job. Our own license today is the mantle. We have sold away our mantle because we don't know that the mantle is there. Do you understand? Because you will only respect what you know you have. Praise the Lord. That's what you are talking about. Oh my. Yes, I've taken your time, I know. Glory be to God. Don't think that taskmasters will not come. Taskmasters will come. They will come to provoke you to fight. They will tell you before you accepted Christ, you have been doing karat. That gift of karat has not died. If these people doesn't want to learn lesson, teach them lesson after you go back and reconcile with God. These are the voices of taskmasters. Teach them lesson. They thought that carrying Bible is weakness. Yes, carrying Bible is weakness. I have been bound. That's what Paul said. I have been bound for the sake of the gospel. Yeah. Oh, he said, woe is me if I don't preach this gospel. I have been bound. The gospel has bounded me. It has made me to look like a foolish person. I am the one when I stand behind the court. Everybody will be judging, running away that Paul is on the bench. But today, Paul is nobody because of the gospel's sake. He said, I counted everything as dunce that I may win him for the excellency, oh my, for the excellency of him who has called me into this glorious gospel. Glorious, they call it glorious. Not just ordinary gospel, glorious gospel. I'm not just calling him, for him to be a preacher of it. Impeachment of supreme verdict. So devil's battle over your life is to impeach that glorious verdict over your life. Are you aware? The question is, are you aware? Because if you're not aware, you'll be sleeping in the church. You'll be sleeping. Devil is here to impeach that given verdict, that wonderful things God has given to you. He's here. He's here. You don't know? You are dozing off. You doze in. You doze out. You doze in. You doze out. Devil is fanning you. You're not aware? You need to be curious and desperate about these things we are saying. If you are not curious, if you are not desperate, you will miss it. Because God will not deal with those who are not curious. God will not deal with those who are not desperate. You must be desperate. Oh my, if you find yourself, that distance is hitting you and you hardened your heart, it means that you have been demonical anointed. Devil have anointed you them all. We normally cry when the preaching is going on. And I found myself in that preaching. I'll be groaning within me. I feel like, please stop. Let me go home and work on this one. This thing is hitting me bad. Because I'm listening. I am bringing my life to the mirror of that word and screening my life with those words. And I knew where it is holding me. And I can't wait to go home and kneel down and weep before God. I can't wait. I'll feel like more preaching is like disturbing. Please, let me go with this. Let me go and deal with myself with God. Let me see if there was still chance to talk to this God. You must be curious. You must be desperate. If you are not desperate, you will also be desperate to go to hell. Because two things happen. Either you are desperate to meet God or you are desperate. Desperate to enter hell, desperate to enter heaven. You can't be in between. Like we said earlier when we started, when you are desperate, you will search. Hello? You would what? Search the scripture. The Bible gave us a key to search. It says, search the scripture. When they preached to the Bereans brethren, they went home to search. Is that not true? They went home to do what? We don't know how to search. When we are in school, they will give us topic of search. Hello? Do you understand what I'm saying? They'll give you a topic you are going to do research on. Do research on this topic. And it must not pass up to 30,000 words. You're on your own. Hello? Do you know the volume of 30,000 words? Go and do research on this topic. It must not be less than 30,000 words. Come up, and they will give you the tablet, how you are the format or verbiage, how you are going to use to do those research. Come and tell the professor or the teacher or whoever it is that you don't know how to search. You go back home and stay. Go and tell your parents you don't know how to do it. Bible gave us room to search. If your Bible does not have room, there's a dispositional Bible. There's a research Bible. There's Bible that teach how to study it. They call it study Bible. There's some Bible you're carrying that you don't need to be carrying. Those Bible will not help you to do research. Hello? Are you with me? We have a lot of materials. Because tax masters, let's look at Exodus. You may not understand what I'm saying. I know I'm taking your time. Exodus chapter 1 verse 11, man of God. Tax masters as a verdict on the people of Israel.
Exodus 1:11.
Yeah.
Therefore they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens, and they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramesses.
Verse 14.
Verse 14. And they made their lives bitter with hard bondage.
Stop there. Hello? What is the mission of the enemy? Is to make your life bitter. Bitter. When you check things around, nothing makes you to be happy. When you look at your mouth, nothing makes you to be happy. They makes your life bitter. So why do you think that your own will be separate? Or God will love you more than these ones? The taskmasters made their life bitter. How are you feeling? Are you not bitter? Huh? The other day, the angel of the Lord was telling us we need to do something. Give us a benchmark of 1 million each person. 1 million. To him is small. Because the one that controls the affairs of life. But to us, it's like that voice is from the pit of hell. Financially, our life is bitter. Is that right? It's very rare to get somebody that is, their salary is 100,000, 150,000. How much? How many months will you do work and save 1 million? Hello? How many days, how many months, how many years? And that's your salary. School fees is there. House rent is there. Everything is there. Everything is there. How many years will it take you to save 1 million? That 1 million in your account, nobody is deducting. The bank is not deducting. You are not deducting. It's just there. And you close your eyes and say, this 1 million, I gave it to God. You see that it is very rare. Is it not rare? Huh? David said, I will not give God that which does not pain me. That is the language. That's the meaning of that revelation. Do you understand what I'm saying? It must pain you. It may be 10 naira. It may be 20 naira. It must pain you. So that God will see reason to bless you beyond others. He said, they made their life bitter. God allowed it. God didn't say, they are my special people. God allowed it. I will check it now. God didn't stop it. He allowed it. And in your own, you are doing 7 days dry fasting so that God will stop it. You want God to stop it? God allowed it. They made their life bitter. But don't forget, they are in the process of fulfilling God's supreme verdict. That is to tell you, when you are in the process of getting that which God has promised you, it will look as if hell has been loosed over your life. It will look as if there is no more open doors. It will look that you are having the misunderstanding up and down. Nobody like to see your face again. Anybody you look for, the person will see you as a devil. Don't worry. The time is coming to an end. That God will change your story. That God will change that garment. That God will remember the covenant He had with you. Time is close. Time is close. Time, you must catch it by revelation. Not just by shouting amen. You must see it in the realm of the spirit. That's when that amen will make sense. Must see it. Impeachment of the supreme verdict. Your families will not be happy that you are doing better. Your brothers and sisters wouldn't be happy. They are calling you to know if you are about to die. So they will, that money they won't give to you, they will contribute it for your burial. Oh my. The Lord will help us in the name of Jesus. So in any season we found ourselves, season of rejection, we must endure. Season of pain and penury, season of lack, we must endure. In any season of life, there must be season. Oh, every season must not be sweet. Every season must not be sweet. There must be rough season. When those rough season comes, instead of you complaining, go back to God in prayer. Praise the Lord. Amen. Amen. Oh, my time is up. Maybe next time with 3 days. Praise the Lord. Yes. Oh, these taskmasters are no jokers. They are no jokers. When the Pharaoh that knew no Joseph came up, he made a verdict that every newly born child, what is he looking for? Their destiny. Hello? It's not just, why didn't he say both male and female? Have you asked yourself that question? You would have said male and what? He said only male. Only male. And the Bible said, when the mother of Moses born Moses, he saw that this child is a proper child. That's what I was telling you earlier. Mothers must try to see. Your husband may not see anything. He's only thinking, looking for how to go and get money. Do you understand what I'm saying? But it's the duty of the mothers to see. It is their duty. So when you are not seeing, that is problem. So the mother saw both revelation and the way the child was born was passing the mother. He saw that this child is different from others, and he preserved the child. He preserved the child. So I don't know how you are preserved, and that child is a symbol of God's supreme verdict over your life. So I don't know how you are preserving that wonderful thing God have deposited upon your life. I don't know. I don't know. There's a place I want to make mention of about Daniel. I will not read it because of time. When the taskmasters in the days of Daniel captured Daniel, what did they do? The Bible said they sent up trap for Daniel. On what? On his religious activities. They set up trap. And the Bible said they caught him. There's a statement that thrills me there. Was when the King Darius saw that this guy, there's nothing I can do about it. He said, he said, let that God you serve continually, let him vindicate you at this time. My brother, I pause. The problem there is continually. That is the bait. If he has been serving God continually in hypocrisy, because continually is not just the issue, it's the condition of serving that God continually is what mattered. Do you understand what I'm saying? You may be serving that God continually. But what condition are you using to serve that God continually? He said, I have left everything to that God you serve continually. I was looking at that place. I was looking at myself. I said, how am I serving this God continually? People may be seeing me always in the church, see me in every fellowship, but spiritually, am I in the fellowship? Am I in the fellowship? Am I in the fellowship with God? I may be in fellowship with you people, but I may not be in fellowship with God. Because what is important is your fellowship with God. So he said, let that God you serve continually. It is a time to prove. Oh my brother, is a checking point for me. It is a time to prove that you are God. If that your God is genuine. We have been hearing you preach. Now, it is a time of proving. You have been preaching all this while. A time will come when people will like to prove that God you have been preaching. A time will come. You can't run away from it. Oh my, may the Lord help us. You know the story. You know the story. What happened? Our verdict is in battlefront. The verdict God had over us, the supreme verdict God had over us is in battle. Devil is dragging it to rubbish it. He does not want you to excel. He does not want you to come forth. He doesn't want you to blossom. He doesn't want you to be whom you are called to be. He wants to mess you up. He wants to kill you. May God help us. Oh my, I want to show you, please give me time. Show you two places in the sermon book. I'll close. I won't preach again. Two places in the sermon book. Hear ye him. Please give me that time. Show you two places in the sermon book. I'll close. Oh, praise God. Hear ye him, paragraph. Hear ye him. Year 1959, paragraph 25 to 27. Hear ye him. Year 1959. Just allow me to pinpoint a few things here, then I'll close. Are you there? Who is there? 1959, paragraph 25 to 27. If you have gotten it, you can read.
Paragraph
25.
Hear ye him, paragraph 25.
Yeah.
I believe it was in the days of Abraham Lincoln when a soldier had committed a crime and he was up for execution. He was going to be shot before a firing squad. And some good friend went to the great Mr. Lincoln, which was an outstanding Christian, and he fell on his knees and said, Mr. Lincoln, there's going to take the life of a man. Just one word from you will pardon the man. He may be guilty of doing something that he ought not to have done in military service, but I know him. He didn't mean to do it. Won't you pardon him, Mr. Lincoln? And him being a rush, he just picked up a piece of paper and said, pardon so and so, Abraham Lincoln. The man bowed politely to him, rushed back to the cell and said, my friend, you are free. I've got your pardon here from Abraham Lincoln, the president of the great United States of America. Here is a signature. The man that was in prison said, why do you haunt me? Why do you make fun of me, knowing that I'm to die in the morning by a firing squad, and bring such a piece of paper as to me, and try to make me believe that Mr. Lincoln's name, that he signed it, said, he ought to be decorated up. He ought to have a seal on it. He ought. He said, but he was in a hurry. Any man knows Mr. Lincoln will recognize his signature, but he rejected it. And the next morning, he died by a firing squad. He had the news of he was free, but he wouldn't accept it. Then that was tried in federal court, and here was the verdict of the federal court. Here was Abraham Lincoln's name. The president of the United States signed that this man was free and should not die by a firing squad. And yet he died by a firing squad. Now what? Here was their verdict. A pardon is not a pardon until it be received as a pardon.
Praise the Lord.
Amen.
Be on your feet as we read the second one. Be on your feet. A pardon. Tell your neighbor, a pardon is not a pardon until it is being received. A pardon is not a pardon until it is being received. You get something? Abraham Lincoln is a great authority in the land. He gave a verdict that let this man who have been condemned be set free. But the man said that the level where I find myself now, nobody will help me out. But do you know the funny thing around it? The man is not a believer. When you're not a believer, you will believe nothing. The Bible says a believer believeth all things. Hello? A believer does what? Because if you are somebody like Thomas, the spirit of Thomas was on him. He wanted to see the letterhead of Abraham Lincoln. And the letter came without any letterhead. Hello? Do you understand what I'm saying? But if this man was desperate to leave, he would have accepted that thing to wait what will happen. But he want to see the letterhead of the White House. If it is truly written by Abraham Lincoln, it must be written with the letterhead of the White House. So he was looking for evidence. He was looking for signs. And Jesus told them, he said, no sign will you receive except the signs of Jonah. You see our problem? We want to see all the evidence made clear before we believe. That's why nothing happens to us. Pastor Niles will be preaching. He pray for you. Your problem continues. They travel overseas. They pray the same prayer to them. Something happened. You know where he came from. You have been rubbing body with him. Familiarity. You know him very well. The same thing. Because the way you receive the prophet, you receive the prophet's reward. They received him with wonderful hurt. I was chatting with some of the Fijian brethren. They were telling me, they were almost crying. We miss Pastor Nice when they escorted him to the airport yesterday. They were crying. They said they miss him. I was asking myself, do we miss him? Most of all will say, if you like, let him follow that side and go to rapture. They were crying, just a few days, they were crying and said, how we miss him. How we miss him. We love him. I was just like, these people, they still have the heart of the white people. We love him. I was asking myself, do we even love this brother? A pardon was given, and he was looking for evidence, and he lost his life. Jehovah Jireh. 57. Jehovah Jireh, 1957. Paragraph 56. Then we pray. Before you receive a prophet reward, you must believe in him, you must love him. Before the God whom he is standing for will bless you. You must be willing to receive God's pardon. God's pardon has been given in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ for you to yield fully to him.
Jehovah Jireh,
1957,
paragraph 56.
Yeah.
Over in Colorado, where I done a lot of ranching, there's a story told about a rancher there. A young baby was laying in the back of a bush board one time, and there was a gunfight down the street, and someone shot off a gun, and the horses ran away. A young fellow straddled his saddle horse and took out after the buckboard, and just before he went over a bank, he caught it and saved the life of the baby. About 20 years or 25 years later, there was a man tried in a court on a criminal case. And the judge, after the jury had pronounced their verdict, the judge was to speak the verdict after the jury had decided. And he said, "Stand up, young man." And the young man stood up. He said, "I sentence you to hang by your neck until your mortal life is gone. God be merciful to your soul." And that young man said, "You can't do that, judge." And he broke loose in the court, started running, and he said, "Judge, judge." He fell at his feet and said, "Don't you know me?" Judge said, "I don't believe I do." He said, "Remember when you was a little boy, a young man, you saved the little baby's life?" He said, "Yes." He said, "You're the same young man that did that, ain't you?" And he just said, "I am." He said, "I'm that baby." He said, "You saved me that day. Save me, judge." The judge said, "Son, I was your savior then, but I'm your judge now. The verdict is passed. And to neglect Christ as your savior tonight may be your judge in the eternities beyond in the morning. Once more, will you raise your hands? God bless you. That's good. That's fine."
Just raise up your hand wherever you are. He said the verdict is passed. I don't know if you heard it well. He said the verdict is passed. I was your savior then. Today, I'm your judge. But as I'm talking to you now, Jesus Christ is still our savior. If you can go through your mind and say, "Lord, examine me. Go through me. Devil has been battling with your supreme verdict over my life. But now it is made clear unto me that there's still opportunity to redeem this supreme verdict. Because if I don't reclaim it now, a time is coming when this Jesus, who is available for me today as a savior, will become my judge. And there will be no time for deliverance. There will be no time for salvation. Oh God, have mercy upon my soul. Oh, I'm here this afternoon to give my life to Jesus Christ. Oh, I'm giving my life, I'm dedicating myself again back to you, Lord. What an opportunity you have given to me to confess my shortcomings. Oh, to give my life to Jesus. Oh, into my life, into my life, come to stay, come to stay,
Come into my life, Lord Jesus.
Into my life, into my life, come into my life, Lord Jesus. Come to stay,
Come to stay, come into my life, Lord Jesus.
Being prayers, begin to talk to God. I want to call you out. If you are here, you want God to touch your life. You want truly to seek God. You want God to pass through your life. You want to accept Jesus Christ as the Lord and your personal Savior. I want you to step out for prayers. The opportunity to save that soul is still here now. Jesus is available for you. Jesus is here. Jesus is here. This is another day for you to give your life to Jesus. Just come out for prayers. Don't harden your heart. Don't harden your heart. Don't harden your heart. As long as the Lord is touching you, this is an opportunity for you to say, "Lord, here am I. Here am I. Here am I. Lord.
Lord Jesus.
Here am I, Lord. I can't resist it. I can't resist you anymore. I want you to pass through my life. I want you to pass through my life. If you want this prayer, come out. If you want this prayer, come out. The Lord will show you mercy. He said that day I was your savior, but today I am your judge. Today I am your judge. If you refuse to accept him now, tomorrow may not be an opportunity. Tomorrow may not be an opportunity. Tomorrow, said, yesterday I was your savior, but today I am your judge. Close your eyes. Close your eyes as you step forward. Close your eyes as you step forward to receive this prayer. I said, Lord, I need this opportunity. I don't want this opportunity to bypass me. I don't want it, Lord. I don't want it, Lord. I don't want this opportunity to bypass me. You're still a savior. You're still a savior. You're still a savior. You're still a savior. Father, we thank you. 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 Father, we thank you for your servant. Power will rest upon his life. Oh, glory be to your majesty. We pray that your power will rest upon him. Oh, let him begin to experience you. Open his spiritual channels. Let him begin to see you in spirit, in dreams and visions. Let the power of God, let it rest upon this vessel. Let every power of darkness, let every demonic evil projections, let every satanic evil prayer, oh my God, oh, you have been our Savior. Oh my God, we pray today. You will not be our judge. You will not be our judge today. 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 Oh, glory, 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 Lord, glory, Lord. Oh, show your servant mercy. Show your servant mercy. Show your servant mercy. Let your servant go in this might. Let him testify. Let him say truly, the Lord has shown me mercy. Oh, I'm afraid, oh, to meet that terrible God. Who can stand before that God that is a consuming fire? Who can stand? Who can stand a consuming fire? Father, who can stand a consuming fire? You are that consuming fire. Who can stand, Lord? No one. No one can stand. We can stand. That's why we are here now. We can stand. Oh, so that this consuming fire will not consume us. We have sinned. We have refused to grow. We have refused to get matured. Oh my God. Stretch for the mighty hands of salvation. And let your power deliver us today. In the name of Jesus. Oh, glory be to your majesty. Your servant is free. Your servant is delivered. Today you have extended your healing power upon the life of your servant. You will sharpen your gifts upon his life. You will empower him. You will open more channels of spirit of discernment upon his life in the name of Jesus. Oh, glory be to your majesty. Father, we thank you. Father, we thank you. Oh, your servant will grow from glory to glory. He will get get to the level of maturity, and he will say, truly, I can see the manifestation of the Almighty God made manifest upon his life. So shall it be. In the name of Jesus. Oh, Father, we thank you for your daughter. Let the power of the Almighty rest upon your daughter. Father, we thank you. Father, we thank you. Father, we thank you. Your daughter is saved. She have run to this rock. Oh, that is our refuge. That is Jesus Christ. This is the rock of our salvation. She have run to this rock, and your daughter is saved. Your daughter is delivered. Oh, today she have run to this salvation. That is our Lord Jesus Christ, so that she will not meet God on the judgment seat. And that's why she is here now. That thou merciful God will show her mercy, that she will obtain mercy and favor in your presence in the name of Jesus Christ. Take absolute control upon her life. She will grow in this might. She will be rejuvenated. She will be filled with the Holy Spirit. The token of recognition will be given unto her, the seal of her redemption. Glory be to your majesty. In the name of Jesus. Thank you, Ancient of Days. Your servant is here because he doesn't want to be appeared before the judgment seat, and that's why he's here, because we still have the opportunity to receive salvation, and that's why he's here. He's crying unto you. May you show him mercy. May you show him mercy. May you not bring him before the judgment seat. Let your servant be redeemed. Let all his sins be forgiven. Go and sin no more. Let the power of the Most High go before you. Make every crooked path straight. May the Lord sharpen the channels of your visions and dreams. May you begin to see. May you begin to rejoice in his presence. May you begin to hear him. Oh, glory be to your majesty. From today, your servant will begin to hear you. Your servant will begin to hear you. Oh, anoint his spiritual ears, that he will begin to hear you, and you will speak to him in a language he will understand, so that he will not be too familiar with Almighty God. Show him yourself and let him testify. Glory be to your majesty. Grant him all his heart desire that is godly in your sight, and we will testify. We will rejoice in your presence, and we will say truly, the Lord has done it. Glory be to your majesty. In the name of Jesus, I present your servant before the throne of grace. Today he has come, before the throne of grace. He has bowed down before you. Instead of meeting you on the judgment seat, he has come that you will show him mercy. That the salvation of the Lord will be stretched upon his life and cover him as a garment. And sharpen his visions and revelations, that he will understand all the glimpses of truth that lies in your word, that he will know what the Lord wants him to know. You will lead him to the road you want him to go. That supreme verdict will be preserved, and no devil will exterminate it. No demon will touch it by any means. No forces of darkness will frustrate the power of God upon the life of your servant. That which you have already want him to be, he will certainly be. Go in this might and celebrate. Go in this might and testify. Thank you, Jesus. In Jesus' name, your heart desire shall be met. That which you want the Lord to do for you, because you have run to the rock of ages, he alone will do it for you. He alone will do it for you. He alone will do it for you. Do it for your daughter. Let her testify. Let her begin to experience you more than before. Let the impartation of the Holy Spirit be so evident upon her life that she will say truly, this God is alive. Oh my God, sharpen her vision, sharpen her dream life. Let her see you and know that this God liveth. Let the power of God take absolute control upon your life. Every battle that is going on in your life, today, that battle is conquered. 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 You are victorious because you have run to this rock. Who is more than able to preserve you. He's the rock of our ages. It's a place of our refuge. You have come to. This God will preserve you. He will not allow you to be put to shame. All your enemies will be put to shame. All the enemies of your destiny, they will be put to shame. Every challenger of your life, the Almighty God will challenge them this day. You will see reason to testify, and you will love this God you have come to serve. Thank you, Daddy, for answering our prayers. In Jesus, and we pray with thanksgiving. So shall it be unto you. That which I have heard you said, I will do for you, because thou hast said it. I will do it for you. Go and testify. I've heard you are crying. I've heard you are growing. I have been able to weigh your thoughts, and I know what you want, and I have granted it unto you. Go and celebrate. Go and rejoice, because thou have come unto me this day. I will redeem you. I will grant your heart desire, and I will not allow you to be put to shame. So shall it be. Thank you, Daddy, in Jesus' name. Daddy, Lord, we thank you for your daughter. Oh, she wanted touch from the throne of grace. Touch her once again. She needed touch, a touch that will turn her life around, a touch that will turn her family around, a touch that will turn her walk with you around. You alone will do it. No man will do it. She have run to the rock of ages. Oh, the lily of valley, the rose of Sharon, the Jehovah Jireh. She have run to. You alone will do it. The doer will do it. You will do it. No man will do it. Because I promise you will do it. You suffered the word, and they will never return to you void. Oh, let the word you have sent forth upon the life of your daughter, let it be fulfilled this day. We shall rejoice. We shall testify. She will jump up and say, the Lord has never forsaken her. She will say, my family have been preserved. The Lord have never allowed your family to be put to shame. That which you have asked the Lord will do it for you this day. Receive it and go and testify. In Jesus' name we pray with thanksgiving. Into my heart, into my heart, come in.